Throughout my childhood, my older sister Kelly cast a shadow over me. My name is Jennifer. Among us, she was the center of attention. Everyone from great-uncles to cousins would drop by our house at some point. Like ants attracted to a picnic, they would swarm to our backyard to enjoy my mom's world-famous BBQ and see Kelly play. A large oak tree provided the ideal backdrop against our meticulously manicured lawn, turning our backyard into an outdoor theater. As soon as Dad would start the grill, the house would be filled with the aroma of charcoal and the sound of meat cooking. Mom was in a constant state of mad dash to get a drink for everyone. "Kelly, sweetie," Aunt Cheryl would raise her voice above the din. "Why don't you sing us a song?" Kelly became the center of attention in an instant. Her golden locks would flutter as she leaped onto a chair, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Before she would begin singing, she would dramatically clear her throat. It was a blast for her to perform her Celine Dion impression during My Heart Will Go On, and the grown-ups went absolutely bonkers, applauding and roaring as if it were a genuine concert. Both parents would be quite proud, and occasionally Dad would even wipe away a tear. At the same time, I would be disguising myself in the surrounding foliage. I really wanted to sing along, but no matter how hard I tried, my voice sounded like a distressed cat. And verse? Let it go. My red face would change into a stammer as the words became stuck. My relatives would often bring up the fact that I was so different from my sister in their whispers. Not only did other relatives make it obvious, but Mom and Dad were also aware of the family celebrity. I was left to fend for myself while Kelly was occupied with singing lessons, dance classes, and art seminars. However, I was mostly ok with it. The old, worn volumes that sat on our shelf brought me solace. It seemed like no one could relate to me except Great-Aunt Teresa. She would discover me skulking behind the garage or in the treehouse, engrossed in a book. "Jennifer, what kind of adventure are you going on today?" As she sat down next to me, she would inquire. When I needed a break, I'd gaze skyward. "Oh, I was just perusing some ancient Egyptian literature," I would explain, displaying the cover of my most recent creation. A smile would spread across Teresa's face as she nodded. "You're really level-headed, my dear. Refute all attempts to convince you otherwise." My heart was comforted by those moments spent with Teresa. She had no expectation that I would put on a show or pretend to be someone else. When I'm with her, I can completely disappear into my character, Jennifer, the shy girl who preferred reading to the bustle of family reunions. Those times were wonderful, but they couldn't erase the pain of being the overlooked kid. My parents would go out of their way to celebrate Kelly's accomplishments and show their appreciation with gifts of all kinds. New clothes, the newest electronics, you name it. What about me? Lots of deep sighs of disappointment and hand-me-downs were my lot. I found solace in my studies. I may not have been the most popular student, but I eventually settled into my niche. I couldn't be content to merely listen. I had an insatiable drive to comprehend every detail. After each lesson, I would confidently ask, "Mrs. David, could you review the material on my dosis one more time?" Somehow, I failed to grasp it. It was obvious that she cared because she would smile. "Without a doubt, Jennifer. How about we review it together?" If an instructor was too busy to meet with me, I would still ask for suggestions for books. I quickly filled my backpack with additional reading materials. I pored over those volumes all night long, intent on getting every subject correct. It was worthwhile. I had already established myself as the class leader by the time I entered high school. At last, I excelled at something. Other reserved bookworms who were understanding of my reserved personality even became friends of mine. Whenever graduation day drew near, our home transformed into Kelly Central. For the advertising and public relations program at a posh university, Mom devoted all of her time to assisting her with her portfolio. As Mom would review Kelly's campaign proposal, she would exclaim, "Oh my gosh, this idea is just perfect. You're incredibly gifted." I would scowl and retreat to my room where I would immerse myself in my studies. But I finally let my guard down one night at dinner with my family when we were talking about Kelly's college plans for the umpteenth time. I said, "I'm going to college too." That was my confession. I am intent on majoring in management. After a long period of dead silence, I was taken aback when everyone suddenly started laughing. "Oh, darling," Mom replied, her eyes moist with tears, "we just do not have the budget for that. Following your graduation, you must secure employment. It's simply that your sister is more talented than you." It was as rude as a slap in the face. But look at me. I'm the class leader. My voice quivered as I spoke. My expression was a mix of shame and wrath as I mumbled, "Every grade is an A for me." Roaring to my chamber, I screamed. I stumped back down to the table with my report card. Their astonishment was palpable as they drew closer to examine it. "Well, I'll be damned," Dad said as he scratched his head. "When was this occurrence?" I became angry and said, "This has been going on for years, and nobody has paid any attention." The redness and remorse on Mom's face were telling. She started to say, "Jennifer, we had no idea," but her father interrupted her. "Listen, it has no effect. Callie's education has depleted our savings. Jennifer, there is absolutely nothing else for you. I'm afraid that is simply the reality. After you graduate, you'll be hired to work at my cousin Gary's restaurant." Disregarding their cries, I bolted. I dashed frantically towards my room, pounded on the door till it rattled with my impact. I broke down on my bed and sobbed till I felt a part of me stiffen. "Okay," I thought to myself as I clenched my hands. "They should assist me, or else I'll figure something else out. I will demonstrate my abilities to them." A haze enveloped the subsequent months. As Kelly departed for college, our parents hugged her proudly and said emotional goodbyes. In the meantime, I dove headfirst into my studies, intent on graduating first in my class. Throughout that period, I began to spend an increasing number of afternoons at the home of my great-aunt Teresa. I was able to forget about the stress at home and focus on it. As we sipped our tea in her cozy kitchen on a sunny afternoon, she finally posed the question I'd been dreading. Asking me, "So, Jennifer," she spoke softly, her compassionate gaze locked upon mine, "what are your plans after graduation?" As I fought back tears, I peered into my teacup. "Aunt Teresa, I'm not sure," I confessed. "College is out of the question for my parents. The cost of Kelly's education has reportedly depleted all remaining funds." For an instant, Teresa remained silent. Squeezing my hand, she extended her arm across the table. "Oh, my darling Jennifer, I do have some savings. For your college, I would like to use them. You're as bright as a bee, and I refuse to let your intelligence go to waste." The impact of her comments was so great that I couldn't help but cry. She was really sweet, and it gave me hope that maybe my goals weren't completely dashed. The words "thank you" escaped my lips as I embraced her, my gaze fixed on her. "Uncle Ted, I am eternally grateful to you." Time slipped away, and I found myself carrying my diploma across the stage at graduation. Looking out at the audience, I noticed Aunt Teresa's proud smile. Even though they didn't appear particularly proud, my parents were there as well. My mom walked into my room that night while I was perusing college brochures. "A relative of your father's named Gary called," she remarked to Jennifer with a lovely, syrupy voice. "You can work as a waitress at his restaurant, according to him. Don't you think that's cool?" I drew a long breath. "You know what? I'm not going to need that job, Mom. College is in my future." Frowning, Dad stepped out of the doorway. "And just how are you going to cover the cost of that?" "Aunt Teresa is assisting me," I declared with confidence. "Her savings for tuition are being gifted to me." The subsequent hush was nearly comical. I was taken aback as Dad's cheeks flushed with rage. "Definitely not," he yelled out. "It is only fair that Kelly receive Teresa's extra cash. The advertising job she'll have after graduation next year requires a vehicle. The news seemed so unbelievable to me. Are you for real? I lost it. Finally, I have an opportunity to further my education and achieve my goals. Jennifer, don't be selfish, Mom urged. That money is more important to your sister than to you. No, I replied, my voice trembling but unwavering. Now that it's mine, I intend to use it to pay for university. Let the conversation end. Life at home became intolerable after that. Either my parents paid me no mind at all, or they would get furious with me over nothing. Suffocating stress pervaded. I contacted Aunt Teresa, sobbing after a bad quarrel, and told her everything. She uttered the words, "Pack your bags, sweetheart," without wavering. "I'm inviting you to move in with me." The following day, I loaded up a cab with all of my belongings and rode away, seeing my boyhood home progressively recede in the rearview mirror until I reached Aunt Teresa's place. Huge burdens were lifted from my shoulders. As I got ready for college, the summer whizzed by, and I found myself walking into the State University campus in no time. My outstanding GPA and Aunt Teresa's generosity allowed me to enroll in the management program of my dreams. It seemed as if I were weightless on the first day of class. I couldn't help but think, I made it as I sat in my Introduction to Business course, taking it all in. Yes, I am here. Kelly, meantime, was beginning her final year at her posh university. I made an effort not to be bothered by the fact that neither she nor my parents had communicated with me much after I moved out. The excitement and independence of college life had me too preoccupied. Aunt Teresa then contacted, approximately 1 month into the academic term. Muttering something along the lines of, "Jennifer, dear," she spoke with some hesitation, "I think you should sit down for this." As she broke the news that I had missed, my pulse raced. Seemingly out of the blue, Kelly returned home and stated she was dropping out of college. And why? A baby was on the way. "Oh, don't worry," Kelly reportedly said, acting like it was no big deal, according to Aunt Teresa, adding, "The baby's father is rich." She had just tossed her hair. "We're planning to tie the knot soon." However, it was not the outcome. When Kelly's boyfriend discovered that she had been seeing his friend as well, things went south for them. She had her doubts about his loyalty. Presently, no one knew for sure who the biological father was. The narrative was narrated to me by Aunt Teresa with a heavy sigh. I listened intently, holding the phone to my ear, while I attempted to absorb everything. The golden child had finally fallen, and a small part of me felt a perverse joy. On the whole, though, I felt terrible for Kelly and all the trouble she was having. For months, the drama continued. Even though I stopped going to family events, Aunt Teresa made sure I was informed on all the latest gossip. A DNA test done on Kelly's newborn child proved that her boyfriend was the biological father. Unfortunately, he simply consented to pay child support. Kelly never got her ideal wedding. My parents had attempted to force me into working as a server at Uncle Gary's restaurant, but the last straw was when Kelly, in her need for cash, took the job. I felt a whirlwind of conflicting emotions after I ended the call. Some shallow, selfish part of me wanted to brag about my accomplishments to my loved ones. All things considered, I was really appreciative of how far I had gone. Classes, examinations, and late-night study sessions consumed the subsequent years. I couldn't have imagined how quickly I was going across the stage at graduation, clutching my well-deserved degree in management. Aunt Teresa was beaming with pride and had tears of joy in her eyes as I gazed out at the audience. I was able to secure a managerial position at the Gilded Fork, a prestigious restaurant in town, thanks to my excellent grades and the glowing recommendations of my teachers. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely accomplished, and the compensation was more than I could have ever imagined. I made up my mind the second I received my first paycheck. I wasted no time getting Aunt Teresa the newest smartphone from the electronics store. As soon as I gave it to her, her face brightened. "Oh, Jennifer," she said, her hands trembling as she turned over the silver phone. "This is too much." With a simple smile, I reached for my own phone. "None whatever. Here, I'll demonstrate its operation." I spent the following several weeks instructing Aunt Teresa in the ins and outs of social networking. The video feature on YouTube was particularly appealing to her, so she picked it up fast. Her garden, cat, and the entire apple pie making process were soon the subjects of numerous videos on her page. I used to spend my lunch breaks watching Aunt Teresa's movies and constantly liking or commenting on them. It became our method of maintaining contact despite my busy work schedule. It was at one of those hectic dinner prep times that my phone beeped. My mother's name caught my attention as I took a quick look. Year after year, we remained silent. "Jennifer," she whispered with some hesitation, "we were hoping you could drop by for a chat," they said. I nodded after a considerable interval. My hand lingered over the doorbell as I stood on the doorstep of my boyhood home on Friday. The door swung open before I had a chance to press it. "Miss Jennifer," I was embraced tightly by my mother. "My darling, it's wonderful to see you." I saw my dad, Kelly, and what I thought was my niece, a toddler, inside. Tensions were high, but not as high as I had anticipated. "You look good, kiddo," Dad quipped in a warm but rough voice. "From what we've heard, you're going well on your own." Still on the fence, I nodded. "Oh yes, I am. My current position is manager at the Gilded Fork." When I brought up the name of the restaurant, their expressions changed. Mom shook her head. "That is really delightful, my dear. Indeed, it is one reason we wish to speak with you." They admitted they were wrong to disregard my abilities and spent the next hour apologizing for their treatment of me. After that, they spoke about the visit's true purpose. By looking over at Kelly, Mom spoke the word Annie. "We were hoping that you might be able to assist Kelly in securing a position at your restaurant." As my sister bobbed her daughter on her knee, I glanced across at her. She refused to look me in the eyes. "I'll do my best," I finally stated. "No guarantees, but I will inquire." I followed through on my promise and discussed Kelly with the restaurant owner, Mr. Brandon. He was willing to give her an opportunity to be an administrator, which caught me off guard. Kelly began her new job the week after that. I was watching her closely because I thought she could make a fool of herself, but she pleasantly surprised me. Her punctuality, efficiency, and kind demeanor were much appreciated by the consumers. I began to relax around her as the weeks passed. Our workplace relationship was cordial, but we weren't exactly best buddies. Life sprung another unexpected turn for the better on me right when I thought things had finally settled down. Mr. Brandon summoned me to his office one day. "Jennifer, how would you like to assist me in growing the business?" he asked with a smile, calming my racing heart as I feared for my safety. A new chapter was upon me before I could even fathom it. Not one, not two, but 4 new eateries were launched under my supervision. Staff meetings, food tastings, and data crunching filled my days. It fulfilled all my desires and was both thrilling and draining. I was really overwhelmed by the amount of money I had when I got my promotion and subsequent large rise. My parents started calling at that point. Things were quite minor at start. "The roof is leaking," Mom would timidly say. "If you'd lend us a hand, we'd really appreciate it." Saying yes and solving their difficulties with a monetary transfer felt surprisingly fantastic. I found myself footing the bill for a full house remodel after the roof and water heater were taken care of. The monthly payment I was paying them helped them improve their financial circumstances, which allowed us to resume our family meetings. However, things were different this time. "Is Jennifer's newest endeavor something you're aware of?" The family would hear Mom's story with pride. "Downtown, she's launching a new eatery. How proud we are of her." Kelly would give me a little smile whenever I caught her glance from across the room. The Gilded Fork promoted her to top administrator, so she was also doing well. "My girls," Dad would exclaim, embracing each of us. One of them is bringing honor to their elder. Anger at their previous treatment of me was tempting, and I wanted to harbor that bitterness. Part of me, nevertheless, reveled in their praise, which I had yearned for all this time. A sense of fulfillment enveloped me as I drove home that evening. I finally achieved my lifelong goals, professional success, and the affection and support of my loved ones. Not only was I the golden child now, but I was also a fully fledged adult. The world began tumbling down on a peaceful Friday afternoon. I was scrolling through YouTube, sipping my coffee, when I saw that Aunt Teresa had posted a new video. It was from one of the family parties I'd missed because of work. Smiling, I clicked play, expecting to see the usual fun and laughter. But instead, what I saw made my blood run cold. There, clear as day, were my parents, their faces red from drinking and self-importance. Mom was waving her hands around, her voice slurred but unmistakable. And Jennifer, that ungrateful little freeloader, she said, "She barely gives us anything. We're not made of money, you know." Dad joined in, his face flushed. "That's right. We're doing just fine thanks to our Kelly. She's the one keeping that fancy restaurant running. Jennifer just rides on her coattails." The video went on, showing various relatives nodding in agreement, some even throwing in their own complaints. Kelly sat in the corner, looking uncomfortable, but she didn't speak up to defend me. As the video ended, I just sat there, stunned. How could they do this? After everything I had done for them, after all the money I had given them, how could they say such terrible, false things? My hands were shaking as I scrolled down to the comments. There I saw a series of messages from my parents. "Teresa, delete this video right now. You had no right to post this. Take it down immediately." But Aunt Teresa's reply brought me to tears. "I don't know how to delete videos," she wrote, "and even if I did, I wouldn't. It's time everyone saw the truth about how you treat Jennifer. She's the one supporting you, and this is how you repay her kindness. Shame on you both." I sat there for what felt like hours, watching the video over and over, reading the comments again and again. The betrayal cut deep, reopening old wounds I thought had healed. Finally, I picked up my phone and called Aunt Teresa. "Oh, Jennifer, dear," she said as she answered, her voice full of sympathy. "I guess you've seen the video." "Yeah," I choked out, my voice raw from crying. "I can't believe it, Aunt Teresa. How could they?" I could hear the anger in her voice. "They've always been like this, Jennifer. You just were around to see it. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way, but maybe it's for the best. You deserve to know the truth." We talked for hours, with Aunt Teresa comforting me as I moved through shock, anger, and sadness. As night fell, I made a decision. "I'm cutting them off," I said, my voice steady despite the pain. "No more money, no more help. They made their choices. Now they can deal with the consequences." The days after the video were some of the hardest in my life. My phone buzzed constantly with calls and texts from my parents, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Their cruel, false words kept playing in my head. After a week of silence, I finally sent them a brief text. "I've seen the video. I know how you really feel. Never again will you contact me. Here is where the money stops." Instantaneously, responses poured in. They expressed regret initially. "Dear Jennifer, our deepest apologies. Nothing we said was intended. Our apologies." Their tone shifted, though, as I remained silent. "It's us, your parents. You owe us a damn." I remained resilient despite the fact that every communication felt like a knife wound. I had repeatedly offered them opportunities, yet all they managed to do was cause me harm. The cycle needed to be broken. Interestingly, Kelly chose not to become involved. She maintained her impeccable work ethic and professionalism at all times. She made no indication that she was distressed about being unable to rely on our parents financially. Our exchanges were courteous but emotionally detached. One day, during a staff meeting, Kelly informed me, "I'm not taking sides. They are not involved. You are." Although a part of me wished she would defend me, I nodded in appreciation of her impartiality. However, I did realize that she was now responsible for her own child. The more time passed, the more I came to depend on Aunt Teresa. I looked forward to our weekly video chats more and more. At a time when my life was in such disarray, she would calm me by regaling me with tales of her garden or her most recent forays into baking. My mom would reassure me, "You're doing the right thing, Jennifer," anytime I felt self-doubt. Stay detached from their manipulation any longer. Other relatives began contacting us as well, which caught me off guard. A sincere email came from my cousin Cynthia, who had been nothing but welcoming during our many family reunions. She wrote, "I watched the video. Jennifer, I just wanted you to know how much I admire you. Your accomplishments and the positive impact you've had on others are truly remarkable. Permit no one to convince you differently. Uncle Frank unexpectedly contacted me. He is Dad's brother. My darling, I have witnessed your remarkable maturation into a lady. Your parents are completely deluded if they fail to see your unique worth. Your loved ones are rooting for you. Do not forget that." The comforting words of encouragement helped mend my broken heart. Even though I had to say goodbye to my parents, I had found a family who accepted me just the way I was. For some reason, Mr. Brandon summoned me to his office right before the year ended. I was anxious about how the family drama would impact my career, so he went into it with apprehension. His reaction, though, was to greet me with a broad grin. "Wow, I'm going to retire next year," he announced to Jennifer. "Please assume the role of Chief Executive Officer of the restaurant chain." I was speechless as I stood there, taken aback. "Are you sure?" was the stuttering response I could muster up. With gleaming eyes, he gave a nod. "I'm more confident than I have ever been before. It's yours to keep, Jennifer. This company would not have been successful without you. You need to step up and take charge." My thoughts were racing with anticipation as I walked out of his office, and then it hit me. The once ignored and underappreciated girl had blossomed into a lady who surpassed all expectations, even her own.